And now may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Well, at various times during our Sunday morning discussions, we've talked about who's the richest man in the world. We've touched on that a little bit, just more as a matter of curiosity than anything else. Bill Gates springs to mind, the founder of Microsoft, and all the millions and billions of dollars he has. Maybe now it's Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, which has become a sprawling giant. If you wonder why stores like Penny's and Sears and Toys R Us are in so much trouble, it's Amazon that's put them out of business. And maybe it's somebody else. I read recently where Apple recently became the first publicly traded company to be valued at over $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. That's trillion with a T. So you know the guys heavily involved in Apple are making a pretty good living. This morning, though, there's another question that I think bears consideration. And it's not who's the richest man in the world, or the richest person, but who's the smartest? Who is the smartest person in the world? Now, there's a lot of people who have passed on that I would have given that title to, or at least serious consideration. Stephen Hawking, the physicist and cosmologist, who passed away not too long ago. The guy in the wheelchair. He was somebody you would look at and think, okay, he could be the smartest guy. He was the one that dared to make all these guesses and estimates and hypotheses about how the universe started. Another guy that I think of is someone named Stephen Jay Gould, also passed away, a paleontologist and another cosmologist. Oh my gosh, to listen to him, and of course his stuff is still on YouTube, I suppose. Oh my heavens, the depth and level of thinking there, an incredibly intelligent person. And then the person we all think of probably is Albert Einstein, the guy who revolutionized our way of looking at the world. His ideas about relativity and space-time and atomic structure just completely changed the way we think of the universe. And his name, even more than 50 years after his death, is still synonymous with intelligence. When we meet somebody who we think is not that smart, we'll say something like, well, he's no Einstein, that's for sure. I think, though, it's important for the purposes of our discussion this morning to understand there is a distinction between intelligence and wisdom. And I think deep down we all know that. But there's a difference between being smart and being wise. And we've all met people who seem to be very intelligent and know a lot of book things, but don't have a whole lot of wisdom to understand about the world. And of course, you've probably heard the saying about someone like that, oh, well, yeah, he's got a lot of book sense, but he doesn't have any common sense. We're talking about wisdom this morning and what it means to be wise. And what better place to start than to talk about Solomon, as we do in our Old Testament. Solomon, the child of David and Bathsheba, after their marriage, is a young man and has now ascended to the throne of Israel after the death of his father David. And that was no small feat. David had multiple wives, and all of them had multiple children, and all of them were jockeying for a position. And all of them, at least the firstborn, thought they should be king. But Solomon has fought them off, and he is now, as a young man, the king of this great nation of Israel. So God comes to him in a dream, in a vision, and says, Ask for whatever you want, and I will give it to you. Can you imagine that? Think about that for a moment. I think all of us, at some point in our idle moments, have sat and thought, what would it be like to win the lottery? What would it be like to have millions upon millions of dollars and do anything you want to do, to go anywhere, to buy anything, to do whatever? And here God comes to Solomon with this offer. And Solomon can say anything. And he asks for something very interesting. He asks for wisdom to rule the great nation of Israel, because he's just a young man and he doesn't know how to rule the people. And God is so impressed with this request, that he says, not only will I give you wisdom and make you, in a sense, the wisest man in the world, I'll give you everything else as well. The riches, the fame, the power, and the glory. So quite literally now, Solomon has everything. Everything. And we can see early in his life how blessed he is. He is incredibly wise. Look at the book of Proverbs that he wrote, and all the wisdom in there. Look at his decisions that he made. He became one of the great judges of his time. And people would come to him from far and away to help him settle their disputes. He became the Judge Judy of ancient Israel. He had money and fame. People came from all over the world to listen to his wisdom and to pay tribute to him. Solomon had everything. But he made a fatal mistake in that he did not use his wisdom to draw himself closer to God and to increase his faith. In the end, it didn't matter, because it ended up destroying him and the nation of Israel. God specifically told the Israelites and Solomon, do not intermarry. Don't marry pagans. They will bring their gods. They will bring their pagan ideas, and they will infect the culture and eventually destroy it. And that's what happened. Solomon had 700 wives, most of them of pagan influence, who introduced their idols into the culture. He also had 300 concubines. I have no idea how Solomon had time to get anything done. But these pagans and these idols eventually, over time, destroyed the nation of Israel. And it was broken up, overrun, and taken into captivity. And at the end of his life now, Solomon, as an old man, looking back on his life, writes the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. And basically, he says, what a horrible mistake he made. He writes, useless. Everything is useless. Chasing after money, chasing after work, chasing after riches, chasing after whatever. It's all pointless, because it's all like smoke. It's all like the wind. It just vanishes. He's looking back from the perspective of someone who knows that he's walked away from God. Why is it, do you think, when Jesus came to earth, that he did not choose the Pharisees or the Sadducees to be part of his inner circle, to be part of his disciples? After all, these were truly the wise people. They knew everything about the law. They'd studied and studied and studied. Paul, for example, we learn, studied under the great religious teacher Gamaliel. And these guys knew everything. Why didn't Jesus pick them? Why instead, as his disciples, did Jesus pick people we would consider to be fairly uneducated? Fishermen, tax collectors, laborers. Why is that? It's because God wanted people who were willing and who wanted to serve. He wanted people he could use. And God understood that when you're really rich, or when you're really strong, or when you've got everything, the tendency is to think, why do I need God? I've got everything. I've got smarts, I've got money, I've got power, I've got position. That's why Jesus himself said that it was easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Not impossible, but very hard. So Jesus picked these men because he knew that he could work with them and that they needed him. True wisdom, then. We started with that question. What is the answer? True wisdom, then. I think a good way of saying that is true wisdom is knowing what you don't know. Knowing what you don't know and realizing that no matter how much you have, no matter how much you've accomplished, no matter how much you've done or written or worked or made, the bottom line is we all still need God. So the smartest man in the world, and I think there are probably some in this room this morning, the smartest people in the world are those who look at their lives and realize it all comes from God. And no matter what they have or what they've accomplished, God has blessed them and given it to them. And they still need him desperately. True wisdom is an understanding of deep down our incredible, everlasting, never-ending search for God and our need to know him intimately. Amen.